Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wealth Pathways, the Affluence Science Insights Podcast produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. We are champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week, we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element with the expert knowledge of professionals in the field. I'm your host, Marie Stella, coming to your ears from Naarm, Melbourne, Australia. Let's learn together. Welcome back to the show. Today we're discussing the cost of owning or renting a home, and typically rent and mortgage payments are two of the top usual suspects in these discussions. But purchasing or renting a home isn't just like buying a pair of shoes where you simply check the price tag and swipe your card and then never have to pay a single cent for it ever again. There are plenty of hidden costs to take into account, and we've briefly touched on these in past podcast episodes, but today we're diving deeper into it and looking at the true cost of owning or renting a home. And joining us in this episode is Associate Professor of Economics, Yogi Vidyattama, who is currently based at the School of Government at the University of Canberra. So we're really fortunate to have him here with us today. Welcome to the show, Yogi.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. And I'm really keen to go further into detail because I feel like a lot of these hidden costs really add up and no one really talks about it that much. But before we get started, tell us a bit about your background and what compelled you to pursue economics.
So I basically, when I was in the secondary school, I have two brothers, and they both are, one is 1 year older than me, and the other one is 1 year younger than me. And therefore, I was thinking, we have these three children to go to university together, and it will be very expensive for our parents. And I was thinking, oh, what is the kind of study that I can pursue that probably can give me a fast track to get to earning money enough for the family. But at the time, my thinking it was accounting. But then along the way, because the faculty has both accounting and economics together, then it become more appealing to take economics rather than accounting. And that's basically a personal preference. And that's the rest is history. Then I pursue economics.
That's really interesting. So, what exactly did you find appealing about economics?
Because when I learn about economics more, I learn about how people behave and how the behavior change the not only the financial issue or surrounding that person, but also the community, and how the planning then affect the bigger society as well.
Yeah, I have heard some experts talk about like behavioral economics as well in the past, and it's always been really, really fascinating. It's a little bit of like forensic work as well. So yeah, I completely agree with you there that that's such a really good decision that you made in your life. But more on the topic of what we're discussing today, what are some of the most common misconceptions that you've heard about housing expenditures?
I think the most misconception is that the focus is on mortgage and renting. But if you think about it, utility in terms of when you are renting, utility and maintenance is actually a big part of it. Even though the maintenance mainly being covered by the landlord, but you need to also ensure that the landlord is happy with you, and therefore you need to take care of any garden if you have. Make sure that there is no moisture. Utility is a big part of it, especially if you are renting in an older house. Uh, I renting in different type of housing, and when you go to older house, usually the insulation is not that good, and the cost of heating could be go to the top of the roof. So it need to be careful when you think about it. In terms of the buying, when you owning your home, rather uh, with the mortgage, you need to think about the maintenance, of course, especially if you buying a older house. But one thing that probably people forgot is the insurance. And in the insurance, sometimes the location will affect the insurance quite a bit. For example, if you are in the place where there are flooding, then you can expect the insurance will be quite high. And sometimes the government and the insurance company deliberately put it as high to make people not living in that area as well. So yeah, insurance probably need to be considered, especially given that currently the uh, cost of materials. So basically, insurance some most of the time cover the building, and with the increase in the price of the materials that we currently had, the insurance, you need to consider whether your insurance can cover if anything happened. So putting the price or the return or the payback as much as your current or known price of your building probably will not be enough if you can uh, because of the increase of the price.
Yeah, that's already such an insightful introduction to our topic for today. So I'm really keen to learn more, but before we get further into detail, I would love to get to know you better. So this is Have You Met Yogi? And my first question for you is, what is your favorite book?
So I actually don't have a favorite book. I initially, if you probably listen since the beginning, why I pursue accounting is because I don't like to read that much. But I think over the time, I starting to like to read about history and the geography that related to the history. So the location of something happening in the past is something that interested. Therefore, I don't really read about a novel or certain authors because of that.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you said that because I've seen some like economics and like business books and finance books that are just so huge. Have you ever had trouble reading, like flipping through them?
The way I read, if it is economics book especially, is to look at the general topic first, and if it is still into the introduction, a lot of the graph actually helping me more, and into the advanced one, probably I quite fascinated with equation, and yeah, that's the way I understand. I sometime in the past I spent a lot of time trying to break down the equation in the economics book or economics journal, which probably quite a quirk hobby, but yeah, that's basically what I like to do, and yeah, it's not really something that probably resonate with other people.
Yeah, well, look, I can imagine that it's really satisfying to complete an equation. So yeah, I may not personally do it myself, but I can definitely see where that satisfaction comes from. Now, my next question for you is, what about movies? Have you enjoyed any films recently?
Not recently. I grow up when the Star Wars is quite big in the past. So when the new episode of episode 1, 2, and 3 coming out, that's something that quite fascinating because, of course, you may know that the beginning in the 80s, it is episodes 4, 5, and 6 that was quite big, that were quite big, and therefore, yeah, Star Wars is something that I at the time really would like to see because of the history.
Yeah, right. And what about podcasts? Are there any that you're listening to at the moment?
Not really. Sometime something that come out from YouTube is something that can be quite interesting. I yeah, I like to listen to radio when I drive, but it is not. Sometimes it is a podcast. There are different discussion about the daily issues in the radio that become a podcast, but I like to hear it when it is coming from the radio because it's quite recent.
Yeah, for sure. And with YouTube, there's so many really good video essays on there right now and educational content. So it's really easy to just put on a video on YouTube and listen, kind of. And once in a while, just glance at the screen for the visual aid. So I definitely see what you mean there.
Yeah,
And
with YouTube, there are also a lot of instruction now. Like a lot of
yeah.
software now have an instruction in YouTube, and it become very useful. And sometimes if you don't know or don't really relate to the one that being formally uh, provided by the provider, there are some people who make it, and sometimes if it is made by people, you can relate more to the content.
Yeah, for sure. And my next question for you is: has there been anyone that you've looked up to either in your professional life or personal life?
Of personal life, I'm a Muslim, and therefore I always look up to my prophet, Prophet Muhammad SAW. And in professional life, that is an interesting question. I was coming from Indonesia, and therefore, uh, the current finance minister was my early lecture in my university, and I look up to her quite a bit. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's really nice to hear. Now, my last question for you is: has there been a course or a class that you've taken that has stuck with you to this day?
Hmm. There is this class by in my undergraduate, and it was delivered by the then dean of the faculty. The it's about uh, economics perspective, but the way it is delivered in a round table instead of a class, and rather than we discuss about the history of the different perspective, we also try to put on our own perspective, our own interpretation of this different perspective. And I guess that kind of class would be quite interesting to have. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a really interesting way of doing things. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you a little bit better. Now, let's move on to the main portion of the interview and talk about the true cost of finding a home. For starters, I would love to define some key terms and contextualize things a little bit. So, how would you define affluence?
So affluence is somebody or something that related to wealth. And affluence family, for example, is a family that has a certain level of wealth. That basically
And secondarily, how would you define housing?
housing is somewhere you can live in. So housing doesn't always mean that you have your own house, but it basically the place that you can stay in. Uh, hopefully it is something somewhere that has your own room, and sometime we are uh, defining somebody who are living in other place, in friend's place for example, but living in their coach, is homeless, because in that case, although they have a place uh, to stay, it is not a complete house, so it is not a complete housing. It is also the case when you are staying in your own car, even though you can stay in the car, but it is not where a room is available for you to have not just sleep but a bit of private activity.
Yeah. And what would you say is the relationship between housing and affluence?
Usually, housing is big part of your wealth. Uh, even though if you already own your own house, even though if it is still in mortgage, then it is a massive part of the wealth because it is calculated as your own wealth. But if you are renting, the the place of stay is usually, or not usually, most of the time become the uh, the basis for you to apply for a job. For example, getting your information because you have address and so on, and therefore housing is a starting point to be affluence, because that is the starting point of the of recurring or uh, accumulating your wealth.
Yeah, and with that in mind, what is the importance of understanding housing expenditures?
So it is important because sometimes it is the big part of your expenditure. It is where your income will be allocated, and this is where you need to think the most when you think about how you are going or how much you need uh, to earn. And therefore, I think for most of the time, you are being considered as in a financial difficulty if you already pay more than a third of your income for your housing. It means that there are less to use for other thing. Uh, some of my older colleagues always mention a third for the tax, a third for the housing, and a third for other things. And you can see that housing will define or put a lot of because it takes a lot of allocation from your income. It will uh, change or affect the planning of where you need to earn, how much you need to earn, and also whether you need to uh, have more than one job if the earning is not enough.
Yeah, and what might the apart from the financial implications, beyond just the finance part of it, what might be the implications of overlooking such housing expenditures?
I think the stress is the main one, because uh, stressfulness. A lot of people think that housing is give you some security. And when you think about, oh, the expenditure will make you, or you don't have the enough uh, income or enough to spend for the expenditure, then you start to think whether you're going to lose the housing, the security of being of a certainty that you have a place to stay, and therefore a mental distraction will be a big issue, and it actually affect the way you are, or the stability of your life, of your working habit as well, and therefore housing is actually quite important for the mental health as well.
Yeah, 100%. So, apart from the two biggest contenders, right, rent and mortgage, what are the most overlooked housing related expenses that would significantly impact household budgets?
So I mentioned about the one that a bit hidden, which is the insurance before, but the one that actually felt, and probably this is because I'm living in Canberra now, uh, heating and electricity is actually quite big issue. And I know somebody who came from a more tropical area, even from Brisbane, living in Canberra. They are being hit by the first time they pay the electricity after a winter, and therefore it is a huge issue. And therefore, when you are thinking about housing, you need to also think about your comfort when it is related to temperature. Uh, like the strategy, I because I'm in Canberra since I was in Canberra since the beginning of my stay in Australia around 20 25 years ago. Uh, Meaning I moved from tropical country to Australia. Then I was quite struggle in the beginning. It's a big issue. Then throughout my study, my life as a student, then I'm trying to make a different strategy, like even having uh like what's it called, the sleeping bag, a good sleeping bag to to be used, so I don't have to turn on heater. So that kind of thing showing that the utility is actually a big issue.
Yeah, my best kept secret for surviving winter without having my heating bill, my electricity bill skyrocket is to use two layers of blankets. And if you really need to wear a coat, just wear your comfiest coat because there is no cost in that, like just well, actually, if you have to buy another blanket, that is a cost, but it is a lot cheaper in the long run to buy a new blanket and use that for winter than to like have to pay $50 an extra $50 every single month, depending on who your electricity provider is as well. So yeah, but another thing that I also personally have seen that many homeowners or renters fail to account for is long-term maintenance and repair expenses. Now, renters don't have to worry so much about this, but they might have to, right? If the landlords just are non-responsive when it comes to maintenance issues. But that's a whole separate topic. But when it comes to homeowners and the long-term maintenance and repair expenses, how would you advise, accounting for that in the budget?
Okay, so this is I discussed this a lot with my wife actually when we were trying to find a house, because a new house is more expensive, but the maintenance is, you need to consider that if you buy a house that being built 20 years ago, then you will starting to think about the termite issue, probably the structure, whether the wood is still good, and uh, yeah, a lot of like pipe and cabling and so on that probably need to be relooked. So I had I have still a friend that went to buy a house in that built in 1993, and not long after that, so this is in 2000 something, so it's probably already around 10 years, 15 years old. So starting is 15 years old. then you need to start thinking about, oh, whether that or this thing need to be replaced. So we decided to go for a new house, a newer house, and it is even at the time still being planned, so uh, off plan house of in a complex, and we decided because to do that because okay maybe the maintenance will not hit in the first few years when we still going to pay quite big amount of mortgage. And the other thing is about the insulation. You can see from this conversation that our family thinking about utility costs is quite significant in our life, and therefore we are thinking, oh, uh, new house because of the current regulation, it has already a certain insulation regulation, and also it has double glazing. So given all those regulation, we felt that okay, it is better to go further for a newer house, even though if it is a bit more expensive.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I've also had experience with that as well. Well, at least my family has, where my past family home, we had it for about 10 to 15 years before we started noticing a lot of things that needed repairing, like water damage, and the we had a koi pond and that was malfunctioning all the time. It was really expensive to keep it running constantly, keep getting it repaired, and also keep buying new koi fishes, which is such is such a first world problem. But if you want to keep the koi pond, that's what you got to do: buy new koi fishes. It's really expensive, and eventually my parents decided to just move because it would be a lot cheaper to move somewhere new than to keep trying to fix these things. And so, like, I think that's really illustrative a really illustrative example of how it doesn't take that long for issues to start cropping up, and probably worthwhile to also invest in like a building a house inspector or something like that that can highlight these issues to you. Now,
Yeah, it's
circling,
actually
yeah.
remind me of something that when we first buy the house, we are actually also very careful in trying to spot any issue, even with the oven, because it is still under warranty, and even the oven it is still there is still warranty with the provider, not the with the developer, but the developer give us the contact of who provide uh, that often, and therefore we are able to get a quick replacement without without spend a lot of money.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good to know. And circling back to utilities, which we were just talking about as well, does it does represent a substantial portion of our housing expenditures. And the talk of the town, I feel like in recent years, has been energy efficiency and installing solar panels, and getting better installation. I'm pretty sure that certain local governments have some kind of scheme in place for homeowners to install solar panels now too. But particularly for those who might not have that assistance from their government, what are the economic barriers to adopting these solutions?
Okay, so my current home, because it is new, there is a regulation in the current place to have a small solar panel. So there is, I think that the main things is the starting cost, and the starting cost is quite huge, especially for battery, and you need to think about the financial advantage as well, especially given that the battery, for example, probably, yeah, if we consider the first price and then how much it's actually can keep, how much it will be used, and when you already have a solar panel, what is uh, the feedback, the feeding tariff as well. So that kind of thing need to be considered. There are some changes, given that currently more and more people have solar panel, meaning there is more supply in the daytime especially. And I think given of that, then the government reduced the feeding tariff, and you need to consider, okay, if the feeding tariff is like that, what is the strategy, not only in whether you have the solar panel or not, but when you already have solar panel, then you need to consider whether to use your equipment in the daytime or in the nighttime. If it is in the nighttime, whether having battery is a good option or not.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot to consider. I admittedly know very little about the actual like practical day-to-day use of having a solar panel because I live in a building and the building manager doesn't really, well, I haven't contacted them. No one has contacted them because um it feels like such a big hurdle to get across, right? But all in all, no solar panels, so I have no day to day idea of what the use is. But you know, for people who do want to install solar panels, and they might not have assistance from the government, for example, you know, what is your best advice for like what to consider in terms of the practical usage?
Yes. So the first thing is how much you are going to be on the daytime, and then it will affect of how big your solar panel need to be. Um, because uh, if you probably need a bigger system since beginning, then it probably good to consider to whether having a battery is part of it. If it is just being used on the daytime, for example, if it is just 2000 kilowatt, sorry, two kilowatt or 3 kilowatt, then probably okay, it probably going to be used when you your water heater on, or your using oven maybe around 1500. So that kind of thinking need to be in. If you are not in the day, in the sorry at home on daytime too much, then probably uh, the day you need to really think about the feeding tariff, because when it is producing, you are not using it, and therefore you actually going to uh, get more from the government, like the electricity that being produced is mostly to be fed. It is good to have some apps. Some supplier provide the apps, and I found that if you have the apps, you are better in managing the way you are using your utility. Sorry, your equipments at home, because then you can see, oh, this is when you need to put the equipment on, and sometimes you can also uh, plan or arrange whether you would like to make put everything on together, where it is way out, way above the capacity of the solar panel, or it being separated, so it is at the time when the solar panel producing.
Right. That's really interesting. So thank you for sharing that with us. Now, the next thing I wanted to touch on is actually something that I didn't research too far into ahead of time. And I kind of just realized it's something we haven't really talked about yet, which is specifically like housing taxes and also like levy fees. I'm aware that if don't know what the exact thing is because again I don't own a house, but I am aware that you know if there's a parking space or like something like that. You have to pay a levy fee. So could you go into detail about that?
Yes. So when you are buying a house, then things that you need to pay is first is the deposit, of course. And if you don't have enough deposit, then you need to pay the lender mortgage insurance. Uh, it is good to try to make that minimum because that insurance is actually for the mortgage, for the lender, not for you. So making that minimum is important. The other thing is actually stamp duty, and stamp duty is basically the conveyancing duty that you need to pay to the government. There are differences, especially now in ACT. We are already past halfway in passing out the stamp duty, meaning it is a bit more cheaper than before in terms of the proportion. Like when I was buying, if there is no passing out, we probably need to pay almost around 20K. But with that passing out, we at the time pay around 12K for 600 around 600 700,000 house. So this could be quite a hit if you are first home buyers in several states and territories. You can actually escape from there, like you are able to state, "Oh, I'm uh, first home buyers," then you are being exempted from paying that. The other thing that need to be considered is the difference when you become like owner occupier with if you are just going to stay for a while and then selling it. When you owner occupier, you need to stay around maybe around 12 months at least, uh, and stay there. And uh, the other thing with this one is when you escape with your reasoning, you probably need to be quite consistent with the reasoning because the states and territories government will chase you if you are not lying, but like if you are planning to stay for 12 months, but in because of certain circumstances you need to sell, then you need to consider, oh, I was getting an owner occupier rates or for the stamp duty, whether then if I'm moving, then the rest of the rates will be put. That then goes to the issue of rates and land tax. Uh, we like I'm taking the example of ACT because in ACT, one of the consequences of lowering the stamp duty, phasing out the stamp duty, is to increase the rates and or the land tax. And uh, of course, with a new area as well, if you are in a new area, the government would like to put a lot of new amenities, and it means that the rate's probably going to be high as well. And then, especially with the passing out of the land tax, but this means this, although this going to be higher, but this can be paid in a different period. While in stamp duty, you need to pay in front, and there is a different, given that paying in front means that you need to save to get to that, because if you are not saving it, you borrow uh, another mortgage or another part of the mortgage to cover that kind of levy, then you basically need to pay later on with interest. Therefore, that need to be considered as well.
Yeah, it sounds like there's just so many costs to take into account, right? So, all in all, What should renters and homeowners be considering when selecting housing beyond just the rent or mortgage payments?
Oh, I think the main thing is actually preference. Uh, I probably mentioned to you and to the the other person about that I was renting for 20 years before I decided to buy a house. And one of the reason is the size and the location. When you are renting, of course, there is another issue with my contractual situation as well. But you are more flexible in moving from one size to another and from one location to another. Uh, when you already buy a house, then you basically need to stuck there. If you have a preference regarding uh, amenities, including the school of for your children, that need to be considered as well when you buying a house. So there are things outside the expenditure that actually going to affect your uh, your decision, and that is mainly based on your on preference and family preference. If you think about it as well, if you are uh, like growing, the family is growing, the biggest decision is when you buy what size this is going to be used for, like whether it's going, if you have two children for example, whether these two children will stay in one room until the end of the housing. If you are renting, you probably can move from one type of housing to another when the kids growing up. But if you already buy, then you have to stuck with it. But if your children still small and you buying a bigger house, then the question is, it is more expensive and whether you need it. That going to play in your mind for some time until you realize you need it. So yeah, like uh, yeah, that's basically it. We actually buy a house with a spare room, and it end up become quite useful because it become like an office, especially due to the COVID era. And yeah, we are still using it as an office, although at the time we probably uh, first we not trying to get to the house with that many room, but we add that one more. It is a bit of coincidence as well because the one with the number of room that we are looking for actually already being bought by other people, and therefore all the option is the one with one additional room. And okay, because we are quite not desperate, but already felt that the location is actually quite uh, justifiable. Quite we are felt that okay, the location is okay. Then we going to go ahead, even though we need to pay extra for that one bedroom.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you raised. I mean, like, if I'm referring to my own situation, in the past, I always wanted to own a home because, I feel like generally that is the popular route to go. That is like what everyone talks about and aims towards. Like, that is the event that everyone's working towards, right? And now looking back, I can't really imagine myself actually purchasing a home just yet, knowing the amount of commitment that goes into it. Like, I think knowing all the expenses that come with owning a home and the level of commitment that requires, that it demands of you is really important because, again, like I said in my introduction, it's not just simply buying a pair of shoes. And what you've shared today definitely um, illustrates that. So thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us. I have had a really fascinating time just interviewing you about this. But now let's talk about the more practical sides of things. So when it comes to household expenditure, what's a day-to-day habit or a regular habit that you'd recommend practicing?
Uh, I think the not commitment, but the agreement of everyone in the house about how you are going to live in a certain house is important. Uh, like we have, because the the house that we were buying doesn't have a separate heating, like it is central heating, then you basically need to uh, have an agreement. Okay, let's do we are agreeing of when to switch on the heater, because it's going to be, everyone need to be happy on it. And so that is the thing, the making an agreement. The other thing that probably I felt quite important as well is about this humidity uh, on in the house, meaning when to open the windows. So there is, again, probably this is because I'm living in Canberra. It can be quite cold if you are opening the window early in the morning or closing it too late. But if you are not opening it, then the moisture will build up, and this build up of moisture have a long uh, impact as well, long term impact, especially to the, I think probably if you are in the older house, you can straight seeing the impact on the mold and so on. But if you are in the newer house, probably the thinking is, okay, how much then uh, the the wall going to absorb this moisture. So that habit of when to open and close window can be quite important, especially because, like I said in the very beginning, utility is a big thing in our household, and therefore, uh, yeah, it is going to affect the temperature at home. While considering if we are not going to open it at all, then it will affect the the moisture in the house as well. But the other habit
Yeah.
is related to that solar panel that we discussed before, in terms of when you are going to cook, where you are going to use different equipment in the house. So those kind of habit is the thing that we were considering.
Yeah, and on agreeing with all the other members of the household with that practice, I imagine that there are some struggles with getting everyone on the same page. What is your advice for facing those disagreements?
I think if you can build an understanding of why, what is the reason, then agreement can be reached, because different people have different preference. But then if you put the reasoning, then there are some bargaining that can be taken. So
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. Now let's go into the open mic segment, and this will be your opportunity to talk about anything that you're passionate about, and it doesn't have to be related to the topic. So the floor is yours. Take it away.
I actually would like to talk a bit more on the topic, and this is related to the fact that if you are older, if you are getting older, housing become like a security for you, an insurance. Given that currently the level of the age pension may not be able to cover your rent, and therefore then owning a house will be important. So even though I'm not saying that everyone need to own a house, but if you are planning on the older age, you need to also consider whether you will have the mean to pay the rent. And therefore I was, this is maybe quite funny or not funny, I don't know, but yeah, my wife one day look at my work about the issue of the financial difficulty for older people, and one of the issue is about paying rent and not owning home yet. And the question is, my wife asked at the time, uh, why we haven't bought any house yet because of that work. So that's probably an eye opener as well. That okay, we probably need to consider it to own our own home because of the costs of renting in the future. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a very insightful conversation, to me at least, and I hope for the audience as well. So, if our listeners want to find out more about you and what you do, where can they go?
So basically, the main one is probably my email. I'm working in the University of Canberra, and so if you look at their website, it probably give you some detail of where you can email me. The other website, probably I lead currently an organization called Australian New Zealand Regional Science Association International, and we have people who work because one of the regional development issue is housing. So house and home and where the location is are part of what we do. So there are people in that association that working on housing as well.
Excellent. We'll leave those links in the show note. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode. You've been listening to Wealth Pathways, the Affluence Science Insights Podcast, produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. More episodes are available from 10 life management perspectives and can be found by searching LMSL on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and other podcasting apps available on your devices. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, share, and subscribe to our channel so that other people can find it and we can continue to provide quality content. More of our work can be found on our website at affluence.lifemanagementsciencelabs.com, where you can join our movement. I'm Marie Stella. Thanks for tuning in.